Discover how a Black intern's heartwarming sign language greeting changed one life forever. Incredibly touching. In the crowded corridors of Greenfield Community Hospital, an electric buzz filled the air. Derek, a dedicated young Black intern, moved through the chaos with a singular purpose: helping those in need. Every day, he felt the weight of his family's hopes on his shoulders. Raised by a single mother who worked 2 jobs to give him a chance at a better future, Derek was determined to honor her sacrifices. He loved his work, yet hidden economic hardships gnawed at him relentlessly. Each bill his mother shuffled aside felt like another brick in a wall he was fighting to dismantle. One afternoon, he met Mrs. Henderson, a beloved elderly patient who communicated only through sign language. A flicker of confusion crossed Derek's face as she tried to express herself. He felt a tight knot form in his chest. This was a person in need, and he couldn't understand her. The wall seemed insurmountable. How could he help those who felt invisible? Yet, in that moment of frustration, a flame ignited inside him. Inspired by his mother's unyielding strength, Derek devoted his evenings to learning sign language. His passion transformed into an obsession. He practiced in front of a mirror, fingers dancing to form the words he once found so foreign. Day by day, his confidence grew. And as it did, so did his bond with Mrs. Henderson. He watched her face light up, her eyes sparkling with recognition and gratitude each time he signed a simple greeting. The office culture at the hospital was a stark contrast to Derek's blossoming camaraderie with Mrs. Henderson. Many staff members dismissed her as a burden, a box to tick rather than a person with stories to tell. Their indifference ignited a fire in Derek, a fiery resolve to advocate for her needs. But when he expressed his concerns to the administrators, they met him with icy resistance. The air thickened as he stood his ground, feeling the tightness in his chest again. "Do you have any idea how much these patients cost us?" one administrator snapped, a condescending tone dripping from each word. Derek felt the room grow silent. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of his family's sacrifices and the fight against the prejudices laid bare in that meeting. He realized that his struggle mirrored Mrs. Henderson's silent battle against societal indifference. Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Days turned into weeks as Derek practiced late into the night. Then came the community appreciation event honoring veterans, a vibrant gathering of hope and unity. As he stood before the crowd, anticipation thrumming through him, he knew he had to muster all his courage. He spotted Mrs. Henderson in the front row, her gaze encouraging. Heart pounding, he signed a heartfelt greeting. "Thank you for your strength, Mrs. Henderson." Suddenly, the room shifted. A wave of emotion rippled through the attendees. Tears glistened, smiles blossomed, and murmurs of admiration filled the air. Hospital executives were visibly moved, grappling with the pure, raw connection Derek had fostered. In that moment, everything he'd fought for felt alive, tangible. Yet, as Derek stood under the lights, he felt the weight of the future pressing down on him. Would this connection fuel lasting change, or would it dissolve in the shadows of systemic indifference? The crowd's reaction echoed in his heart, eternally uncertain. The applause swelled, a warm wave that wrapped around Derek like a comforting blanket. He looked out into the audience, pockets of faces aglow with appreciation, but one stood out: the soft, wrinkled smile of Mrs. Henderson. Her eyes glimmered as she signed back, "Thank you for seeing me." That moment was etched into his heart, a beacon of hope amid the uncertainty. Backstage, the energy shifted. Derek's colleagues buzzed about, chattering animatedly about the unexpected emotional impact of his gesture. Yet for Derek, the applause faded into the background noise. All he could hear was the quiet voice of doubt whispering in his ear. Did one heartfelt moment really hold the power to change anything? The next morning, Derek returned to the hospital, the mundane buzz of equipment and nurses' voices washing over him. As he walked the halls, he noticed the same dismissive glances directed towards Mrs. Henderson. Older patients were often viewed as disruptions, not cherished individuals. His heart sank. Had yesterday's impact really meant anything beyond those fleeting moments? Determined, he made his way to Mrs. Henderson's room. The familiar smell of antiseptic greeted him as he stepped inside. Her face lit up immediately upon seeing him, as if he were a long-lost friend. "You came back?" She signed enthusiastically, her hands moving fluidly, full of life. "I wouldn't miss it," he replied, his fingers maneuvering awkwardly yet sincerely. "How are you feeling today?" As they conversed, he leaned in, captivated by her stories of a vibrant life filled with family, love, and resilience. Each tale she recounted of her struggles during the civil rights movement, of her late husband, who had served as a mentor in his community, filled Derek with awe. She was not merely a patient. She was a living testament to overcoming adversity. After their chat, Derek felt invigorated. He realized he needed to do more, reach out beyond the walls of this hospital. He could advocate for all patients deemed invisible. He envisioned an initiative that would not only educate staff, but also foster real connections with all patients. Gathering his thoughts, he approached a few supportive colleagues, sharing his idea of organizing sign language workshops. Surprisingly, a handful jumped on board, inspired by the ripple effect of yesterday's event. But others shook their heads, dismissing the importance of the initiative. "Are you serious? It's just sign language," one colleague scoffed, throwing cold water on the sparks of enthusiasm. For a moment, Derek felt that familiar knot in his chest, but he stood his ground. "It's not just sign language. It's about connection, understanding." He could feel the weight of Mrs. Henderson's struggle molding his words, reinforcing his resolve. Yet, with each passing day, a silent war played out within him. Should he continue fighting against a system poised for indifference, or swallow the doubt and let things be? Would his efforts fade into echoes, like so many before him? As the weeks unfolded, Derek plunged deeper into advocacy work, fueled by the stories of those around him. Yet, the pushback from some peers and administrators lingered, a sobering reminder of entrenched indifference. When he faced another round of resistance from the hospital leadership, he noticed something subtle. A new face in the crowd, a young nurse named Lisa, who watched with concern. Maybe, just maybe, he wasn't alone in this journey. He raised his head, heart pounding anew, realizing that the real fight was just beginning. Would Derek find an ally in Lisa to help push for the right changes? Or would he remain alone, fighting against the tide? The stakes were high, but he felt a flicker of hope igniting within. The next chapter of his journey awaited, one filled with the possibility of real transformation. It was time to take the next step. Would it lead to the change he so desperately sought, or plunge him deeper into conflict? Derek stood in front of the crumbling notice board in the hospital's break room, his mind racing. Little pieces of change could start from this sticky wall of faded paper. He recalled how invigorated he felt after talking to Mrs. Henderson. Each sign she made told a story, a life that mattered. As he pinned up a vibrant flyer announcing the sign language workshops, something shifted within him. "Do you really think this will help, Derek?" Lisa's voice broke his reverie. She stood beside him, glancing at the flyer with skepticism. "I have to believe it will," he replied, turning to meet her gaze. "Patients need to know they matter. They shouldn't feel invisible." "Easy for you to say. You're the one bringing in all the applause," she said lightly, but there was something serious in her tone. She had a point. He hadn't faced the barrage of indifference personally. Yet, Derek pushed that thought aside. I heard what you said at the meeting last week. You see it too, don't you? She hesitated, her eyes darting away. I do, but I'm just one nurse. I don't have the energy to fight the whole system. Together we can, he urged, feeling a surge of urgency. Let us create a ripple effect. It can start here. Lisa finally smiled, her true self breaking through the worry. Fine. I'll help. But only if you promise not to let the naysayers get to you. I promise, he said, feeling a weight lift. Over the next few weeks, the workshops began to take shape. Patients and staff alike trickled into the small conference room, some out of curiosity, and others out of genuine interest. Derek crafted lesson plans that blended education with empathy, weaving stories of patients like Mrs. Henderson into the curriculum. Every class became a celebration, a shared experience of expression and connection. The first session was a mix of awkward smiles and nervous laughter. Derek and Lisa stood at the front, hands moving through the signs like whispers of newfound promise. After a few hesitant attempts, one nurse impressed everyone by correctly signing the phrase, I see you. The inadequacies of treatment and indifference morphed into understanding and compassion. As the weeks passed, Derek felt the atmosphere at the hospital shift ever so slightly. Conversations started to linger in hallways. Patients were being called by name rather than numbers. The laughter that spilled from the conference room began to seep into waiting areas and beyond. It wasn't a grand transformation, but it was a start. One day, during a workshop, Mrs. Henderson joined the group. Her presence illuminated the room, and everyone leaned in to hear her stories. As she signed, laughter and tears intertwined proof that connection had the power to bridge even the widest gaps. But not everyone was on board. The resistance still lingered. A chilling email from hospital administration arrived, questioning the workshop's value. This isn't nursing. It's just signing, it stated flatly. Derek felt that familiar knot tightening in his chest. Yet, his resolve only strengthened. He gathered the courage to confront the leadership, prepared to advocate not just for the workshops, but for dignity and understanding in patient care. This matters. Empathy matters, he rehearsed under his breath. The day to present arrived. Heart racing, Derek stood before a small but stern gathering of administrators, his notes shaking in his hands. Lisa's supportive pat on his shoulder provided some comfort. I can't let fear win, he thought, taking a deep breath. As he began to speak, words poured forth, driven by every patient's story he had heard. He had one shot at this. Would it lead to the understanding they desperately needed? Or lay dormant, like weeds among concrete, waiting to be uprooted? Suddenly, he spotted Mrs. Henderson peering at him from behind a curtained window, eyes glinting with pride. Would this moment change everything or just push him deeper into conflict? The tension hung in the air, a palpable force. Derek took a deep breath, steadied himself, and started to speak about the workshops. He recalled the first nervous participants and the joy that filled the room when they succeeded in signing simple phrases. His heart raced as his passion poured out, weaving stories of patients feeling seen and heard. This isn't just about sign language. It's about connecting. It's about recognizing that every person matters whether they can hear or not. Several heads nodded among the small audience, but he noticed skeptical expressions lingering. They were waiting for statistics and data, the cold hard facts that justified every initiative. He shifted, trying to gather his thoughts into something that would resonate with the numbers people. But he wasn't a statistician. He was a nurse, a human. Suddenly, he felt a surge of inspiration. What if we looked at the lives behind the statistics? We share our stories, our laughter, our tears. Isn't a little compassion what healthcare is truly about? The words were out before he could second-guess himself. The air was thick with an uneasy silence, a mix of intrigue and doubt. But as Derek glanced around, he caught Lisa's encouraging smile. It grounded him. Someone from the back, a doctor whose face he didn't know, spoke up. "So, you want us to spend resources on workshops? There are real medical stresses we face daily." Derek responded quickly. "Empathy can't be measured, but it can heal. A patient who feels understood can respond better to treatment." He looked down, steadying his breath. "I've seen it happen. Mrs. Henderson is one example. In her story, you see the importance of understanding our patients as whole people." At the mention of her name, murmurs rippled through the room. He spotted Mrs. Henderson watching from her post, her hands clasped together, a symbol of hope. "But what if you're wrong?" the doctor pressed, crossing his arms defiantly. Derek's heart raced again, but this time it was an adrenaline rush, igniting his resolve. "What if I'm not?" he countered. "What if giving a voice to those who feel voiceless makes the biggest difference? What if it could change, no, save lives?" The unshakable tension turned into whispers as Derek spoke from the depths of his heart. He could feel every eye on him, the weight of their expectations like a tight knot in his chest. It was as if his words were a lifeline thrown into troubled waters. He leaned in, eyes wide and earnest. "I can't promise that every patient will suddenly show improvement because of this, but I am promising that we will empower them. That every moment we spend showing we care will ripple into their recovery." Silence engulfed the room again. For a moment, it felt like a stillness before the storm. Then someone else, a nurse, who had attended the workshop, stood up. "I was skeptical at first, too," she began, voice trembling just a bit. "But I've seen the change in our patients. They light up when we try to communicate with them. We can't forget that even as caregivers, they deserve respect." Emboldened, Derek capitalized on the shift. "Together, we can build a bridge of understanding. Let us give voice to the voiceless. Let us show every patient that they count." His heart pounded. The words wrapped around him, carrying both hope and fear. Would they move forward with these workshops? Or would he be left fighting a lonely battle against indifference? A hushed deliberation overtook the group. Eyes darted between the administrators and the passionate staff who had stood up. Derek held his breath, waiting for the wave to crash down or lift him ever higher. Then the door creaked open slowly, and in walked Mrs. Henderson, her signature light shining through. "I believe in this," she said firmly, her voice resolute. "And I am not just one voice. I represent many." The room held its breath. Would they take a chance? The moment sprawled before Derek like a tense scene in a movie, tantalizing yet uncertain. What would be the outcome of this defining moment? Would they stand by a vision that held the potential to transform care forever? The silence stretched like a rubber band, suspended in anticipation. Derek could feel the weight of the room pressing down. Every eye was fixed on Mrs. Henderson, as if her presence infused new life into the initial doubts that had almost stifled the discussion. He found himself holding his breath, waiting for someone to break the tension. The doctor who had challenged him shifted uncomfortably, his stern expression wavering. "And how do you plan to implement this? Resources are tight." Derek seized the moment. "It starts with small steps. We don't need grand funding right now. We need commitment. Let us designate a few hours a month. Gather people who want to learn. We invest in our foundation. Communication is the bedrock of effective care." One by one, glances were traded amongst the team. There was a spark of something unspoken, curiosity, perhaps, or maybe the stirring of hope. Derek could almost hear the gears turning in their heads. Mrs. Henderson continued, her voice unwavering. "When I first came here, I felt isolated. It wasn't until I met people who took the time to communicate with me that I began to heal. It's the simple gestures like signing, a smile and effort. She led with vulnerability and strength, the embodiment of courage. A nurse at the front, visibly moved, addressed the room. I think it's time we elevate that understanding. We all entered this field to help others, but how often do we forget that connection can be the biggest medicine? Derek's heart raced. This was it. The momentum was shifting. He stepped forward, buoyed by their energy. We often underestimate the power of our words and actions. We can't afford to lose that chance to connect. He looked into the faces surrounding him. Imagine being a patient and suddenly feeling seen, feeling hope because someone gave you their time. Money can't measure that. From the back, another voice joined in. I've seen patients glow just from feeling included in their care. They want it, need it just like we do. Yes, Derek exclaimed, his eyes brightening. Let us not just talk about these workshops, let us share stories. Share our own setbacks and triumphs. Can you imagine a meeting where we simply celebrate our journey as caregivers and patients alike? The crowd murmured in agreement. There was energy now, a palpable shift. Conversations erupted, ideas clashed and blended. A woman in scrubs stood up. What if we start a sign language club right here at the hospital? Let us make it part of our culture. Derek's heart soared. This was the spark he had hoped for. As the momentum built, he captured pieces of their conversation in his mind, a tapestry of ideas that seemed to take on a life of its own. They began discussing potential dates, resources, and even brainstorming fun ways to engage others. Laughter ricocheted around the room in a warm embrace, knitting them closer together, transforming skepticism into excitement. Still, amidst the growing enthusiasm, a part of Derek felt hesitant. Could such a leap of faith lead to sustainable change? He knew the road wouldn't be smooth. But looking at his colleagues, he felt a warmth creeping and a sense of solidarity and shared purpose. Then, just as exuberance reached its peak, the door swung open again. A young intern, her eyes wide with eagerness, stepped inside. I heard about the workshops. I want to help. I remember what it felt like to be able to communicate with my grandfather before he passed. I want to help others feel that connection too. Derek felt the flood of emotion welling up again, swelling in his chest. Here it was the moment he had longed for. Together, they were transforming a vision into a reality. But as excitement pulsed in the air, a single question echoed in the back of his mind: would their passion be enough to sustain this tide of change? As Derek looked around, ready to address both his fears and the sheer potential of the room, he caught a glimpse of Mrs. Henderson smiling at him, her eyes brimming with gratitude. Let us make this happen, she mouthed silently. It was time to dive in. The first workshop loomed ahead, promising a world where they could all communicate. Yet deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that they were on the edge of something far more profound and awakening. What challenges would they face as they embarked on this journey together? Would commitment and compassion truly bridge the gap? Derek awoke the next morning with a mix of anticipation and anxiety swirling in his chest. The excitement from last night's meeting still hummed in his veins, but uncertainty lingered like a stubborn shadow. Today was the day that he launched their first workshop. Would anyone show up? Would they truly be ready to embrace this shift? He arrived early at the hospital, the faint scent of antiseptic greeting him as he walked through the familiar corridors. Posters clung to the walls, reminders of past initiatives focused on care and connection. It struck him how many incredible stories were tucked away in these hallways, waiting for someone to uncover them. Derek found the designated room almost empty, save for a couple of chairs scattered awkwardly around a long table. A few other staff members arrived, their faces lit with a mix of nervousness and excitement. He greeted each of them with a smile, grateful for their presence. They leaned together, sharing comments about their roles and expectations, their chatter easing the collective anxiety. Just as Derek began to feel a surge of confidence, the clock ticked down to the official start time, and the room felt suspectingly quiet. He glanced at the door, hoping to see more eager faces flood in. Moments stretched unbearably, and he forced himself to breathe. Then, a soft knock broke through his thoughts. The door creaked open, and in stepped the young intern he had met the night before. She was followed by 2 other staff members, and soon, more faces began filling the seats. Each person brought their own story, their reasons for wanting to connect to change. Wow, Derek thought, his heart warming. They're here. With a mix of enthusiasm and vulnerability, he began sharing his vision for the workshops. He encouraged everyone to voice their thoughts, anxieties, and desires. What did connection mean to them? As each person contributed, a patchwork of hopes and experiences painted the room. Laughter bubbled up, stories resonated, and something palpable began to weave them together, a sense of collective purpose. As the meeting progressed, Derek noticed the young intern watching closely, her eyes sparkling with intent. He turned to her and asked, "Would you like to share something?" Her cheeks flushed, but she stood tall. "I may not have a lot of experience," she said, her voice steady, "but I remember when my grandfather lost the ability to speak. He was still there, just hidden. I really believe that if we connect with our patients through sign language, we can help them come alive again." Derek felt a lump form in his throat. She had struck a chord deep within him. "That is powerful," he replied, his voice earnest. "Let us help them feel seen, just like your grandfather did." With her encouragement, they brainstormed different ways to illustrate their ideas during the workshops. They practiced basic sign language, each gesture accompanied by laughter and cheers, as they stumbled through the unfamiliar motions. The room became a living tapestry of connection, echoing the joys and struggles of communication. Hours whisked by in a swirl of shared smiles and clumsy hand gestures. The sunlight slanted through the windows, casting warm hues over their gathering, a group once defined by their roles, now transformed into a community. As they wrapped up, Derek felt electric. He turned to face the group. Today was just the beginning. We have the chance to change lives, including our own. Imagine the impact we can make. The excitement echoed through the room, but another thought nagged at him, clinging stubbornly in the back of his mind. What would happen when they faced setbacks? When the weight of routine and the daily grind attempted to dull their passion? With that lingering doubt, he couldn't shake the feeling that true transformation would demand even more than they had given so far. Would they be ready to support each other when the journey grew tough? The first workshop had ignited a spark. But the real test lay ahead, and Derek knew they would have to brace for the challenges that were bound to come. Could they turn this moment into a movement? The next morning, Derek awoke with a renewed sense of purpose. Memories of yesterday's workshop played in his mind like a highlight reel. The laughter, shared ideas, and the spark of connection lingered, but behind the light lay a shadow, a question that hovered above his thoughts. Could they really carry this momentum forward? He slipped out of bed, ready to tackle the day. As he sipped his coffee, he recalled the look of pride on that intern's face when they practiced siding together. It was a moment that felt pivotal, like the first step toward changing everything. But along with pride came worry. What if they faltered when faced with real struggles? Derek headed back to the hospital, his heart racing. He entered the same room where they had met the day before, but it felt different today. The air buzzed with energy. Staff members began to trickle in early, their faces bright and eager. Derek felt a surge of hope. Maybe they really could create something lasting. Morning, Derek. One of the nurses called, her piecing together breakfast snacks for everyone. "Hey! What's all this?" He chuckled, smiling at the sight of homemade pastries and fresh fruit. The camaraderie felt tangible, each gesture strengthening the bond they had formed. As more staff members gathered, Derek sensed a collective excitement. They were all in this together, ready to take the next step. He stood at the front, feeling a mix of authority and vulnerability. "Let us jump in," he said, rallying their spirits. As they transitioned into discussions today, he felt their willingness to dive deeper. They began to explore not just the mechanics of communication, but the emotional nuances, the fears. What holds us back from connecting? Derek posed, inviting the honesty that flowed between them like a river breaking through banks. One nurse raised her hand, her brow furrowed. "I think it's fear of rejection. What if we try to connect and fail?" Her sincerity struck a nerve, and a murmur of agreement floated around the room. Derek took a deep breath. "That is valid. But isn't it true that every time we put ourselves out there, every attempt, no matter the outcome, can lead us to growth?" The discussion ignited. They shared their past failures, the times they felt vulnerable with patients or colleagues, and the lessons learned. Each story built bridges among them, reinforcing the bond that had begun to form. Suddenly, the door swung open, and the young intern from yesterday rushed in, slightly out of breath. "I'm sorry I'm late," she exclaimed, holding her hands up in a sign that said, "But I'm here now." Laughter erupted, and in that moment, the entire room's mood lifted. Derek watched her with admiration. She brought fresh energy, a reminder of why they convened in the first place. "You're right on time," he said with a warm smile. "We were just talking about fear of rejection." Before she could respond, the volunteer from yesterday chimed in. "What if we all took a moment right now, just to appreciate each other's courage?" Derek could feel the tension of yesterday's worries evaporate. The group let their barriers drop. They began to express gratitude, sharing why each person mattered to their mission. As praises flowed, Derek's heart swelled. This was connection. This was the core of what they hoped to build. But in the depths of his mind, the question still lingered. What would happen when they faced rejection? How would they support one another when the initial excitement faded, or when outside challenges threatened their growth? Derek glanced around the room, watching the faces of the people who had opened up, hoping and fearing together. He felt the unease curl in his stomach, intertwining with hope. Would this sense of community hold true when true tests emerged? As the workshop came to an end, they stood in a circle, hands intertwined, wrapping up their time together with a collective breath of anticipation. Derek's voice rang out, echoing with an optimism that masked his doubts. "We can't ignore the challenges ahead, but I believe we're stronger together. Let us embrace every part of this journey together." Little did he know that the very next day, they would face an unexpected hurdle that would challenge everything they had just begun to build. Would they be able to rally, or would this setback threaten to unravel their newfound movement? The next day began with the same promise as before, but the clouds hanging overhead seemed to echo Derek's unease. He arrived at the hospital feeling the weight of the day ahead. Today was critical, but he couldn't shake the lingering worry about the challenge that might disrupt their unity. As he stepped into the meeting room, he saw the usual faces, but a different energy swirled around. Conversations buzzed with excitement, but the tension was undeniable. Derek took a breath, trying to infuse courage into the air. "All right, everyone, let us gather around," he called out, clapping his hands together. The group formed a circle, and Derek noticed the young intern was standing near the edge, her eyes darting between her colleagues. A fleeting moment of uncertainty crossed her face, but she quickly anchored herself in place. "Today, we're going to try something a bit different," he said, his voice steady. "I want us to pair up and practice not just our skills, but also to understand our partner's experiences." He watched as the staff began to shift, finding partners amidst whispered words of encouragement. Just as they were about to start, the head of the department burst into the room. His expression was tight, eyes focused. "Derek, can I speak with you?" The sudden shift caught everyone off guard. All eyes fell on him, and he felt their anticipation hang thick in the air. "Give me a moment," Derek said, his heart pounding, as he stepped towards the head of the department. Outside the meeting room, the authority's voice was firm. "There has been a complaint about your workshops. Some feel it's not contributing to the overall training, that it's merely touchy-feely nonsense," he said, pitting Derek with a hard stare. Derek's heart sank. "But we're seeing real improvement. They're connecting in ways we haven't seen before." "I need results, Derek. Consider the stakes. This isn't just about feelings. It's about efficiency." The words weighed heavy, like an anchor pulling him down. They were being watched, and if they failed to produce results, everything they had built might come crashing down. He returned to the room to find everyone looking expectantly at him. Derek's mind raced. Should he tell them? He could feel the lifeblood of their collective spirit pulsing, vibrant and fragile. Taking a deep breath, he looked around, meeting each of their eyes. "We've been faced with some pushback regarding our approach. It's clear we need to show how these connections improve our work." A murmur rippled through the group. Derek's heart quickened. Would they retreat back into fear? Would the spark they had ignited extinguish under the weight of skepticism? The intern stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. "What if we documented our connections? Show how they affect our patient care. We can collect stories, even measure the impact." "Yes," another nurse added excitedly. "We could do a survey to see how communication affects our interactions." Derek felt warmth spread through him. Their energy ignited real hope again. "That's brilliant. If we can illustrate the benefits, but it's not easy, either," the volunteer said, reeling Derek back. "We'll need to be prepared for some difficult conversations." Derek nodded, feeling the gravity of their task. This isn't just about facing skepticism, but also about holding on to what we've built. We have to be strong together. In that moment, he saw determination hardening in their eyes, a fierce light that ignited hope. Perhaps this challenge could bring them closer instead of tearing them apart. But even as he spoke with conviction, a question weighed on him. Would they be able to embrace the challenges while protecting their fragile bonds? What would it take for them to not only survive the storm, but emerge stronger? As he looked around the circle, he knew they were at the threshold of something monumental. Yet, the sharp edge of uncertainty pressed at his chest, leaving him anxious for what lay ahead. As they began to brainstorm, their voices rose with enthusiasm, but the shadows of doubt lingered just at the edge. Would they truly transform their fears into strength, or would the reality of their situation prove too much for them to handle? The answer loomed, just beyond their reach. The atmosphere in the meeting room shifted with a palpable sense of purpose. Derek felt a surge of optimism as ideas churned around him. Staff members engaged in animated discussions, brainstorming ways to measure their connections. Each suggestion brought a flicker of light to the heavy cloud swirling in Derek's mind. Suddenly, one of the nurses raised her hand. "What if we start with the patients themselves?" Her voice carried a sense of urgency, as if she were ready to embark on a journey. "We could ask them how they feel about the care they're receiving. Their insights could serve as our strongest evidence." "That's a fantastic point," Derek exclaimed. He could see the potential for something transformative right in front of them. They could be the change that not only supported them as a team, but also enhanced the lives of their patients. But every bright thought came tethered to doubts. The intern's earlier suggestion echoed in his mind. It was clear that even with their best intentions, gathering the stories and feedback from patients was no small feat. They would need to navigate barriers that could easily derail their efforts. As discussions deepened, Derek noticed the intern again, her face animated with newfound confidence. She had shared an idea that had lit a fire in the group, and now it seemed everyone turned to her for enthusiasm. What had started as nervousness had morphed into a fierce desire to contribute. What if we incorporate our own stories? The intern proposed hesitantly at first, but then, with growing conviction. We could share our own experiences of connection with patients. This personal aspect would help others understand why it matters so much. Derek nodded, feeling a swell of pride for her. Yes. Real stories from real people. This will resonate with our patients and connect them more deeply with our work. His heart raced as he realized that each story would not just serve a purpose in their investigation. It would create a tapestry of shared experiences, binding them closer together in their mission. The group spent the next hour piecing together a plan. Ideas bounced around, creating a web of energy that seemed to draw them all closer. They assigned responsibilities, established a timeline, and set their sights on gathering heartfelt stories from both patients and staff. They even created a visual board to map out their ideas, a colorful tapestry of hope and determination. Yet, in that moment of collaboration and joy, Derek felt a slight twinge of fear. What if the pressure to produce results toppled their progress? What if their openness led them to confrontation instead of connection? He glanced at the intern, who now looked more like a leader than a newcomer. Her eyes reflected the shimmer of hope, but shadows still lingered. Hours later, tired but inspired, Derek stepped outside into the cool evening air. He breathed deeply, a rush of excitement coursing through him. He believed they could turn the tide against skepticism. They had found strength in unity, a good team working towards a common goal. But just as he began to feel comfortable in this new path, his phone buzzed aggressively in his pocket. The head of the department was calling. Derek's heart sank as he pictured the stern visage of his superior, the weight of the complaint still fresh in his consciousness. With a glance at the vibrant sky, contrasting its brightness with the tension threading through his mind, he answered the call. "Hello?" "Derek," the voice on the line was sharp, cutting through the evening calm. "We need to talk about the direction you're taking. I'm concerned about the time this is taking." Derek's mind raced as he glanced back at the gathering in the meeting room. Could he hold on to the newfound momentum? Would it all slip through his fingers at the first sign of pressure? As the conversation unfolded, Derek braced himself for the storm he felt lingering just beyond the horizon. How would he defend the value of connection when doubt threatened to unravel everything they had worked for? And in that tough moment, he realized something profound. Perhaps this was just as much about their journey as it was about patient care. Could their struggle truly become part of the story they needed to tell? He closed his eyes, momentarily exhaling, strength pooling inside him. But the question remained, would this perception change with the struggles ahead, or would it end in defeat before they could see the impact of their hard-fought journey? The next morning, the sun rose like a promise. Derek stepped into Greenfield Community Hospital, invigorated yet aware of the challenges ahead. The walls hummed with activity, the echo of purpose filling the air. But today felt different. The stakes felt higher. As Derek made his way to the meeting room, he spotted familiar faces. It was a mix of old friends and new allies, all gathered to push forward. He took a deep breath, gathering his thoughts. It was time to elevate their efforts. "Hey everyone. Thank you for being here so early," Derek greeted, his voice radiating enthusiasm. The buzz of conversation faded as everyone turned their attention to him. Today isn't just about gathering stories. It's about realizing our potential. We're not here to just survive in this system. We're here to revolutionize it. A cheer erupted from the group. The energy was infectious. Derek could see hope dancing in their eyes, all too aware that this wouldn't be easy, but feeling ignited nonetheless. Let us outline our approach. We'll need volunteers to engage with patients, collect their stories, and show how our connection impacts care. The intern, full of energy, raised her hand. "I'd love to take the lead on beginning conversations." I think starting from the younger patients will instill hope among them. Absolutely, Derek replied, excitement swelling within him. Your perspective is crucial. Each story counts. We can make a difference, one interaction at a time. As the day moved forward, the team fractured into smaller groups, each taking on responsibilities: patient connections, story gathering, and adapting their workshops for maximum engagement. Derek put faith in their collaborative spirit. That evening, the buzz in the meeting room felt electric. They were gathering not just names and faces but real-life experiences. Those stories would be the lifeblood of their mission. Imagine if we share these stories during regular staff meetings, Lisa suggested, her excitement palpable. It would remind us why we do what we do. That's brilliant, Lisa. Derek beamed. Let us showcase how empathy can impact patient care. People have to see it to believe it. We'll illustrate our journey together. Days passed as they dove into this newfound mission. The effort turned into a work of art: collages of letters, handwritten testimonials, and photos showcasing moments of connection. Each piece vividly painted a narrative of resilience. Yet, the challenge was always close behind. Just as Derek thought things were gaining momentum, the storm struck again. The administration scheduled a meeting to discuss the mounting costs associated with these initiatives. Derek, we need to focus on the bottom line. We've had complaints about increasing hours spent on these workshops rather than direct patient care, the head administrator said, leaning forward, a hard edge in his voice. Sir, the evidence is growing. The feedback we're getting is showing an increase in patient satisfaction. If we can invest in connection, we can improve not only care but overall outcomes, Derek urged, heart racing. Are you sure this isn't just fluff? The administrator huffed, arms crossed. Derek felt that knot in his chest tighten. He understood the bottom line mattered. It always did. But their work was about something deeper: connection, igniting healing. It's not fluff. Every story we gather is a voice. They need to be seen. Patients deserve our time. It's not just care, it's compassion. The tension in the air thickened as he held his breath, uncertainty washing over him like an unexpected wave. Would they see the worth? Hours later, he returned to the meeting room, a mixture of hope and dread swirling within him. The team had gathered, eyes alight with anticipation. How did it go? The intern asked, concern painted on her face. Derek sighed, collecting himself. There are obstacles to overcome. This is going to take all of us pulling together, being steadfast, he explained. But we have something incredible happening here, something they can't dismiss. Empowered, the team leaned into the plan they had constructed together. Let us flood their offices with kindness, stories, and urgency. We all represent every patient who feels lost. Our work can be a testimony to what connection truly signifies, Derek urged, feeling the fire rise within. They shifted gears, utilizing every ounce of energy to create an immersive presentation filled with stories, moments of vulnerability, and the changing patients' lives at the heart of everything they did. After weeks of preparation, they found themselves standing together in the conference room, an ensemble of intention, courage, and unity. The atmosphere buzzed as they prepared to present their findings to the board. Sitting there, listening to their testimonies, Derek felt all wash over him. They had created something tangible, a portrait of empathy. He watched his colleagues put hearts into every word. Connection should never be an afterthought. Lisa spoke eloquently. In every dialogue, we see improvement. It's not just about what we do, it's about who we are when caring for one another. Derek felt a wave of pride surge through him. This felt like a turning point. Moments later, he took a step forward, pouring everything within him into one impactful message. We're not just caregivers, we're guides in this journey of life together. Our purpose awaits in every interaction. Curing the patient isn't enough, we must heal the bond as well. Silence enveloped the room, the weight of hope hanging. Derek held his breath, and as he dared to glance upwards, something remarkable happened. He saw heads nodding, hearts responding. The administrator finally leaned back, thoughtful, their gaze shifting towards the vibrant tapestry of stories behind them. "You're right," he said slowly. "We can't afford to overlook the human element. Let us find a way to embrace this initiative." That moment felt monumental. It was more than a small victory. It was the recognition of their efforts. Derek felt the tears burn in his eyes, relief washing over him. The battle against indifference was finally yielding to the fruits of connection. As they left the conference room hand in hand, Derek couldn't contain the joy bubbling inside. They had done it together, faced doubt, emerged vulnerable, remained steadfast, and in their hearts, a new spirit thrummed. Today marked not just a success for Derek and his team, but a beacon of hope, a momentum that would push the hospital towards a shift in care where empathy would reign supreme. The road ahead wouldn't be easy, but they would embrace every step together. As they stood in the corridor, laughter echoed around them. Derek looked around, realizing how far they had come. And as they shared smiles and hugs, he understood that this was just the beginning. Together, they had created a movement that spanned beyond the walls of the hospital. They had fostered a new culture, one where every life mattered not just as a statistic, but as a story worth telling. Now it was time to keep that momentum going, to forge ahead. You need to subscribe now to follow every step in this incredible journey. This is the moment to show your support for our channel. You can help feed the algorithm with just a click. Leave a like now. Comment below your thoughts on this transformative journey and your feelings about the impact. And don't wait not even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. Together, let us continue building this movement